One 2,000 years ago, in a city where the summer sun pushed past 45 degrees Celsius, a person could step out of the blistering street, walk through a doorway, and feel the air turn cool, almost like stepping into a cellar. There was no electricity, no machine humming in the corner, just clever walls, falling water, and a tower of mud reaching into the sky. Last time, we saw how people made ice in the desert, but ice was the easy part. The harder question was this: how do you survive the heat itself, day after day, in a world without air conditioning? For thousands of years, humans answered that question with nothing but physics, patience, and the shape of their own homes. Start with the danger. We treat heat as uncomfortable. For most of history, it was deadly. A heat wave could wilt crops, spoil food in hours, and kill the young and the old. In crowded summer cities, there was no escape after dark because the stone and brick that baked all day kept radiating heat all night. People couldn't change the weather, so instead, they learned to change their buildings, the air, and even their own daily routines. The first line of defense was the house itself. Long before machines, people cooled with shape and material. In hot regions, walls were built thick, sometimes a full meter of mud, brick, or stone, so heat from the blazing afternoon took the whole day to creep through, arriving only at night when it was finally welcome. Windows were kept small and high. Streets were made narrow and winding, so the buildings shaded one another and the sun rarely reached the ground. And at the heart of the home sat the courtyard. In Roman houses, this was the peristyle, a garden ringed by columns with a fountain at its center. In the cities of the Middle East and Spain, it became the shaded patio. The principle was the same: plants and water cooled the air through evaporation, and as the day warmed, that cool, heavy air sank and flowed into the surrounding rooms. The house breathed on its own, but the most spectacular invention reached straight up into the sky. In the deserts of Persia, engineers built tall towers called windcatchers, badgers, some of them over 3,000 years old. From a distance they look like chimneys, but they work in reverse. A windcatcher opens to the breeze high above the rooftops, catches even the faintest moving air, and funnels it down into the rooms below. And when there is no wind at all, it still works. The hot air inside the house rises up through the tower and escapes, pulling cooler air in behind it. A single well-built wind catcher could lower the indoor temperature by more than 10 degrees and change the air in a room dozens of times an hour, all without a single moving part. Now combine that tower with water and you get something close to magic. Beneath many Persian cities ran qanats, gently sloping underground channels that carried water for miles from the mountains. The one beneath the city of Yazd is over 2,500 years old. Builders learned to route the air from a wind catcher down past this cold underground water before it reached the rooms. As the dry desert air passed over the water, some of that water evaporated, and evaporation steals heat, so the air that finally drifted inside arrived noticeably cooler. The Romans used a version of the same trick, running aqueduct water through channels built into the walls of their finest homes. In India, people hung thick mats woven from fragrant grass roots across their doorways and kept them soaked with water. The hot wind blowing through turned cool and damp and sweet-smelling as it entered. Different continents, different materials, the same invisible science of evaporation. When the air refused to move on its own, people moved it by hand. The simplest tool was the fan, and almost every culture had one. But in India the idea grew into something grander: the punkah, a large cloth or palm leaf panel hung from the ceiling and swung back and forth by a rope. A servant, often called a punkahwala, would pull that rope for hours, sometimes through the entire night, keeping a steady breeze moving over the people below. It was the distant ancestor of the ceiling fan turning quietly above so many of us today. And when no building and no breeze was enough, people simply changed how they lived. In the hottest parts of the world, the middle of the day was surrendered to the heat. Shops closed, streets emptied, and everyone rested in the shade until the worst had passed. We still have a word for it: the siesta, at night, families carried their beds up onto flat rooftops to sleep under the open sky, where the air was finally cool. Others retreated into cellars dug deep into the steady coolness of the earth. They opened their homes to the night air and sealed them again at dawn, trapping the coolness inside like treasure. Survival wasn't only about engineering, it was about respecting the rhythm of the sun. Then, in 1902, all of it began to fade. A young American engineer named Willis Carrier was asked to solve a humidity problem at a printing plant, and the machine he built to do it, blowing air across coils chilled by cold water, became the first modern air conditioner. At first it cooled factories and cinemas. Within a few decades it cooled ordinary homes. And as it spread, the windcatchers fell quiet, the wet grass screens dried out, and the rooftops emptied at night, all replaced by a cold box humming in a window. But here is what's worth remembering: none of these old methods were primitive. They were the result of people studying their world with extraordinary care: the path of the sun, the direction of the evening breeze, the way a single drop of water vanishes into dry air and carries a little heat away with it. They cooled entire cities using nothing that could ever break down or run out. So, the next time the power flickers on a scorching day, remember the tower of mud in the desert and the people who stayed cool for thousands of years with no electricity at all. If you enjoyed this, subscribe, because next time we're looking at how news and messages traveled across the whole world long before the telephone or the internet existed.